are these people?
Another multi-million-dollar propaganda campaign aimed at Americans. So, have you noticed a lot of pro-Israel bots lately? I specifically noticed a sect of them that are trying to deflect and say, well, if you talk about the genocide that Israel is committing, what about the other genocides around the world? What about Congo? What about Nigeria? What about this? No, we're not doing that. Yes, certainly other genocides are important, but that is not. We're not taking our eye off this ball. We're not taking our eye off the fact that Israel is still torturing and murdering Palestinian children, women, babies, doctors, teachers, healthcare workers, you name it, every day, and starving the entire population. Fuck Israel. Now remember that without U.S. support, Israel would not be able to continue its occupation of Palestine, abuses toward Palestinians, or endless wars in the Middle East. I disagree with that because I think that the UK is providing as much, if not more, support, plus Australia. But certainly it definitely needs the US and it needs the weapons and the money that we're giving them. But I think that they also would be able to figure that out if they didn't get the money from us. Take the genocide in Gaza. Again, he cites Brown University's Cost of War project, which uncovered that the U.S., under the Biden and Trump admins, have already spent over $21 billion in military aid to Israel since the start of the war on October 7, 2023, with an additional $9.6 to $12 billion on military operations in Yemen and the wider region, sparked by or in support of Israeli military operations. That's between 31 and almost 34 billion and counting in U.S. spending. So the Cost of War project also noted that without the U.S. money, weapons, and political support, the Israeli military could not have committed such rapid, widespread destruction of human lives and infrastructure in Gaza. They could have, just not quickly, or escalated its warfare so easily to the regional level by bombing Syria, Lebanon, Qatar, and Iran. It's mostly political support and it's military backing to know that if any of those countries did retaliate against Israel, that the U.S. would also get involved. Without U.S. support, the Israeli government would have no combat aircraft to drop bombs and many fewer bombs. An increasing share of Israel's arsenal would be down for maintenance without U.S. government or U.S. contractor mechanics and spare parts. In addition, Israel's government could not have built a military of its current size and sophistication without U.S. financial backing. Thanks, Zionist douchebags in this country, you fucking assholes. At the same time, more and more Americans are beginning to oppose Israel. God, I can't imagine why. Due to its endless atrocities in Gaza and the West Bank, and its deep manipulation of U.S. politics and foreign policy through various lobbying groups such as AIPAC, J Street, Zionists of America, Beitar, and others. As the Israeli paper Haaretz noted, again, quote, Pew surveys conducted between 2022 and 25 show a rapid decline in support for Israel amid the war in Gaza. Even among conservatives. Wait, you mean conservatives don't like using our money to blow up brown people when we could be using it to give health care to the people here? Some 42% of Americans held a negative view of Israel in 2022. 3 years later, that number jumped to 53%. Still too low, in my opinion. The collapse in support is not limited to Democrats. Half of young Republicans under age 50 now hold a negative view of Israel, up to 15% since the war began. Again, because it's not a war. It's a massacre. It is one side bombing and leveling the entire the area and murdering everybody in that area that isn't running for their lives. This is why, as Haaretz has now revealed, Israel is launching a new multi-million-dollar propaganda campaign targeting Americans in an attempt to shore up American support for Israel and to keep the weapons and cash flow to Israel going. What a shock. Quote, the Israeli government has signed contracts worth millions of dollars in recent months to rehabilitate Israel's standing in American public opinion, both online and offline. $7,000 checks. Amid a sharp drop in support from the conservative right, Israel has hired firms to conduct not just Hasbara campaigns, literally they admit it, but also campaigns targeting millions of Christian churchgoers. You mean the Christian Zionists? Again, there are more Christian Zionists in the United States than there are Jewish Zionists worldwide. Bot networks to amplify pro-Israel messages online. Remember I mentioned that earlier. We've had a few of those in our YouTube comments. And efforts to influence both search results and the responses given by popular AI services like ChatGPT, which conveniently went down this morning. The article went on to report, quote, documents filed over the past 2 months show that the government of Israel, through their foreign ministry, the tourism ministry, and the government advertising agency, 3 different ones, signed multiple contracts in the U.S. to promote Israel's interests, quote unquote. Adding that, quote, payments are routed through Havas Media Germany GmbH, a subsidiary of the international advertising and public relations giant Havas. They also, by the way, are advertising on Rumble, and they're buying ads on Rumble. And they're propagandizing Rumble. They're Hamas's brutal war. What? All the hostages have been returned, guys. What are you doing? The investigation uncovered the, quote, the largest of the new Hasbara contracts was signed in August with a firm called Clock Tower X, owned by Brad Parscale, who led a role in Trump's digital campaigns in 2016 and 2020, a $6 million 4-month contract signed between his firm and Havas Media on behalf of the Israeli government. So $1.5 million a month for 4 months to blanket social media with pro-Israel propaganda. But not just social media, but publishing articles and offline media and television. The Israeli government directed Parscale's company to produce at least 100 core pieces of content per month, including videos, audio, podcast graphics, and text, and over 5,000 derivative versions monthly, aiming for 50 million impressions a month. Ben Shapiro-style numbers, adding that, quote, 80% of the content will target young Americans on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Again, bots targeting comments. And that, quote, campaign messages will be distributed via Salem Media Network. That's the network that, by the way, is buying the ads on Rumble, a conservative Christian media group that owns more than 200 stations and websites. Again, how convenient. The Salem Media Network produces a long list of staunchly Zionist conservative podcasts and radio shows with personalities including Dinesh D'Souza, Josh Hammer, Laura Trump, Dennis Prager, Larry Elder, Jack Posobiec, and Hugh Hewitt. So basically it's CIA radio. Along with this campaign, Haaretz revealed that Israel is running a similar propaganda campaign in an attempt to manufacture support for Israel's genocide in Gaza and an American war with Iran amongst American evangelical Christians. Guys, you're being manipulated. You're being played by the guys in little hats. Are you not reading this? Are you not paying attention? The report noted, quote, another Israeli campaign commissioned for the foreign ministry was proposed by the Show Faith by Works, owned by Republican consultant Chad Schnitger. I would be very careful. An evangelical operative connected to the Christian right. God, these people just grow on trees, it feels like. The campaign's budget exceeds $3 million, a tenth of which has already been paid to Havas through a final contract, which has yet, though a final contract has yet to be signed. That could be even more. Filings submitted in September describe a focus on churches and Christian organizations in the Western United States, aimed at countering declining support for Israel among evangelical Christians and raising awareness of Palestinian ties to Hamas and support for terrorism. This, by the way, why don't you just come out and say Utah? Because that's what's going on there. They're going after Utah. Salt Lake City. Utah Valley University, where Charlie Kirk was shot. Haaretz noted, quote, and they want the Mormon community as well. Very deep, devout evangelical Christians. But again, Haaretz noted that, quote, according to these documents, these goals will be pursued through biblically based arguments highlighting the importance of Israel and the Jewish people to Christians, end times Catholicism, while spreading messages that the Palestinians chose Hamas. They murder Christian aid workers, not Israelis, which have been murdering them for the last 2 years, and all Palestinian Christians, and the 10% of Gaza was Christian. They celebrated the October 7th massacre and sheltered terrorists. You mean they celebrated their jailers being attacked for a day? Yeah, they did. Palestinians in Iran share genocidal intentions toward Israel. Again, every accusation is a confession, and more. Adding that, quote, the filings for the proposed campaign explain that the messages will reach their audience through the largest geofencing campaign in U.S. history. They're literally going to target specific locations. So when you go to a church, when you drive through a certain area, when you visit a certain location, something's going to show up on your phone. Again, a pitch to map the physical perimeters of every major church and Christian college in California, Arizona, Nevada, and Colorado during worship hours. That's a massive project, by the way. And it's creepily targeting people by their location. It's identifying attendees using commercial data, tracking them, and continuing to target them with relevant ads even after they leave the fucking church. And these rooms won't even have any fucking clue what's happening. That's the sad part. The estimated audience for the suggested project, 8 million churchgoers and 4 million Christian students. That's a pretty big number. That's the targeted audience. That's not how many they expect to actually influence. If they influence 50,000, that's a successful campaign. Along with this, the investigation noted that Israel is using this propaganda campaign to attempt to gain AI bots like ChatGPT and force them to repeat pro-Israel propaganda, writing, quote, a central element of Israel's campaign is its attempt to influence the popular AI chatbots that have exploded in recent years. But if they were on the up and up and what they were doing was legitimate, why would they need to influence with a propaganda campaign? One clause in the Clock Tower X contract reveals a search and language operation, quote, designed not only to promote the campaign on Google and other search engines, but also to generate framing outcomes in GPT conversations and AI-based dialogue systems. They want to train the AI to be Zionist. And when it's not, shut it down, like they've done with Grok multiple times. By the way, block Grok. You are able to block that account. Block it. Then it can't quote you. It can't look at your account. And you can't see its responses to other people because it's stupid and it lies. And don't take it as anything that's resembling a fact. It is a collection of the inputs that it sees. So what Israel is trying to do here, again, is flood the zone with slop. Zionist slop so that the GPT that looks at the overall whole will say, oh, well, the overwhelming majority of articles say this, so this must be the case. As part of this work, the firm will also use the search engine optimization software Market Brew AI, which is a predictive AI platform that helps clients adapt to algorithms and promote their work on search engines like Google and Bing to help improve the visibility and ranking of relevant narratives. Again, Market Brew is a legit company. They're a newsletter company built around Mail Brew. All right. But Market Brew is used by companies all over the place, but this is being used for nefarious purposes. More on the Haaretz investigation. Another Israeli campaign disclosed in the Foreign Agents Registration Act filings was signed with SKD Knickerbocker. We talked about them before. Also via Havas for the foreign ministry, worth roughly 2.5 million shekels. Under the contract, the firm, again, actually considered close to the Democratic Party, will develop a bot-based program on various social media channels that floods the zone with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs pro-Israel message. The firm will also recruit up to 5 spokespersons to promote Israeli messages in international media and on social media, alongside those bots, which will operate on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And then a separate campaign run by Targeted Communications Global for the tourism ministry will use influencers and commercial content to promote travel to Israel for another cool 1.2 mil. By the way, fuck Haaretz too. They're garbage. But what this investigation shows is that Israel is desperate to run a mass-scale, multifaceted propaganda campaign to get Americans to support Israel. And not even to support Israel, to just ignore what Israel is doing and not be opposed to Israel. Along with this direct government-funded propaganda campaign, Israel has used its U.S.-based pro-Israel billionaires to take part in similar propaganda campaign. People like Bill Ackman. When he last visited the U.S., Netanyahu famously met with Zionist influencers and told them that they had to secure that part of the base of our support in the United States, adding that we're going to have to use the tools of battle. The weapons change over time. We have to fight with the weapons that apply to the battlefields in which we are engaged. And the most important ones are the social media. Just like a fucking boomer. And saying, and the most important purchase that is going on right now is TikTok, #1. And I hope it goes through because it can be consequential. And he made sure it happened with his boy Larry Ellison. Again, speaking of Larry Ellison, Netanyahu was referring to the purchase of TikTok by Larry Ellison, the pro-Israel Oracle founder, who is a personal friend of Netanyahu and the largest private donor to the IDF. And now Ellison's son, David, who's the owner of Skydance Media Production Company, also played a part in this propaganda campaign. What a surprise. Buying Paramount, the parent company of CBS News, and then buying the Free Press and installing the pro-Israel propagandist Barry Weiss as editor-in-chief. Now he's making a bid for Warner Brothers Discovery. Since Weiss was installed as editor of CBS, recent job cuts at CBS News disproportionately hit those whose coverage was critical of Israel, a staffer told Variety. What a surprise! They're purging anyone that questions the narrative. The New York Post reported that Weiss fired journalist Deborah Pata and installed Chris Livesay as the Israel correspondent at CBS News, whom the paper reported showed strong support for Israel, strong support for murdering Palestinian children. With American support for Israel declining, Israel is now more desperate to shore up American support as their mass propaganda campaign, and it's certainly not doing anything to help the narrative that Jews and Zionists control the media. Again, not just Jews, Zionists specifically. Zionists that are in support of advancing the Greater Israel Project, which I have repeatedly said should not be allowed to exist, nor should Israel as a country. Fuck Israel. Support independent media if you can. That's our wall of fame. Those are the people that have actually supported INN with some kind of tip, Patreon monthly support, Substack subscription, Stripe tip, Cash App, Ko-fi. Those are the ways to do it. Cash App, $, Indie News Network. By the way, I saw a talking wombat. You see in top left corner, one of the very first patron supporters hanging out in chat right now on Substack. Thank you so much. Love you. Appreciate you still being around after all this time. Okay, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network. We got paypal.me/Indie News Network. IndieNewsNow.com, where you can watch this show live. You can check out independent news completely free and ad-free. And you can also get merch. We got merch there too. And we can also get over at Substack, IndieMediaToday.com and INNNewsletter.com. We got two different Substacks that I support and publish to. See you next Tuesday. So support independent media. Like I said, we need it more than ever. I'll see you next week. And I love you all, fam. Have a good night. No! We just fucking lost the stream.
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days, and I still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to say. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe? Were you safe?